My name is Helen Morrison, and I am 72 years old. I've been called a quiet woman. A gentle woman. The kind who bakes cookies for church and never raises her voice. But the truth about me is far more complicated. The day I buried my husband was the day I stopped being a victim. And for the first time in my life, I became something else entirely. We lived in a small southern town, one of those places where everyone knows your business, but nobody dares speak about it. I'd been married to Richard for 49 years. He was a former army man. A deacon at our church. The kind of man who shook hands with strangers and always wore polished shoes. But at home, behind closed doors, he was a monster. To me. And, as I later discovered, to someone far more innocent. Our granddaughter, Lily, came to stay with us that summer. She was 10 years old, with big brown eyes and a soft voice that trembled when she spoke. I didn't see the signs at first. I didn't want to. Because sometimes, facing the truth means accepting that the man you've shared a bed with for half a century is evil. I reached for a glass one evening and brushed her shoulder. She jerked away like I'd burned her. I paused, glass in hand, and looked into her eyes. They were wide. Haunted. "Sweetheart?" I asked. She smiled, too quickly. "Sorry, Grandma. I thought you were." I thought. She trailed off. That night, I found her sleeping in the closet. When I asked why, she said, "It feels safer here." Richard said she was just an emotional little thing, that her mama spoiled her too much. But I started noticing more. She wouldn't eat when he was in the room. She avoided eye contact. And once, when she thought I wasn't watching, she washed her hands until they were raw and bleeding. My stomach turned. I knew that behavior. It was the same way I acted when I was young. When Richard still hit me behind closed doors. I thought he'd changed. I thought I'd buried that part of him. I was wrong. One afternoon, while Lily was at the neighbors playing with their dog, I cleaned her room. I found a small purple notebook tucked under her bed. It had her name written in big loopy letters. Lily Morrison. Private. I opened it. I know I shouldn't have, but I did. The first page said, "If something bad happens to me, please tell Mommy I tried to be brave." My hand shook. The next pages were filled with horrifying drawings. A stick figure with a red face. Another figure curled up in a corner. Words like, "It hurts." "Why me?" "He told me not to tell." My heart broke and rage erupted in me like an old pipe finally bursting. I put the notebook back where I found it and went into the kitchen. Richard was sitting in his recliner, watching a war documentary. I stood behind him silently, watching the back of his head. I imagined smashing the glass pitcher on the counter over it. Instead, I said, "We need to talk." He glanced back at me and grunted. "Talk about what?" I didn't have the words yet. But they were coming. The next morning, I asked Lily if she wanted to go for a walk. The woods behind our house had a winding path she liked. She was hesitant at first, but then she nodded. We walked in silence. Leaves crunched under our feet. The birds chirped as if unaware that the world was about to split open. When we reached the bend in the trail, I stopped and sat down on an old wooden bench. "Lily," I said gently, "you can tell me anything, baby." She looked away. "I mean anything. You won't get in trouble. You won't be blamed. I promise." Her lips trembled. She looked back at me with those deep, hurt eyes. "Grandma," her voice cracked, "he said you wouldn't believe me." That you'd pick him. Who, sweetheart? She didn't answer with words. She just started crying, those silent sobs children cry when they've been holding it all in too long. I hugged her as tightly as I could. Her little body felt like it had been holding 1,000 pounds. She whispered it then, barely audible. What he does, it's not just hurting me. It makes me want to disappear. I couldn't breathe. I knew. And now it was real. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a second. I stared at Richard while he snored, disgusted by the rise and fall of his chest. How many nights had he laid there next to me, pretending? After what he had done? I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab something heavy and end it then and there. But I needed to be smart. Because if I acted on rage alone, I'd never be able to protect Lily, or give her the justice she deserved. I made a plan. At 3 a.m., I made a phone call. To someone I hadn't spoken to in over 25 years. Her name was Carla, and she was my sister. The one person I pushed away because Richard told me to. She picked up on the second ring. Hello, her voice was groggy. It's me, I said. Helen. There was silence. Then. Helen? Are you okay? No. But I'm ready to fix everything. We met the next morning at a diner off Route 12. She looked older, gray in her curls and a softness in her eyes I used to envy. I told her everything. She didn't say a word. Just held my hand. Then she said something I'll never forget. It's time we buried more than our silence. Carla helped me find a lawyer, a friend of hers who dealt in domestic abuse and child protection cases. I brought Lily's journal. We took photos. We documented everything. But Richard was smart. Charming. Manipulative. There wasn't enough to press charges yet. Not without a direct witness or physical evidence. I knew what I had to do. I had to catch him in the act. It was the darkest decision I ever made. But I wired the house with hidden cameras, one in the living room, one near Lily's room, one in the hallway. It took 3 weeks. 3 soul-crushing, sleepless weeks. And then, one night, it happened. I watched it live from my phone in the locked bathroom. My hands shook. My stomach churned. Richard had gone into Lily's room. She froze. Like a doll pulled from a shelf. But she looked up toward the camera, just once. She knew. I burst from the bathroom and ran down the hall. Richard! I screamed. He spun around like a child caught stealing. I had a baseball bat in my hand. I didn't swing it. Not yet. I've got everything, I said, pointing to my phone. And you're never touching her again. His face turned dark, twisted. You think anyone will believe you over me? You're nothing, Helen. Just a washed-up, senile old. That's when I hit him. Once. Twice. Then 3 times. He fell. I didn't stop until I couldn't hear him breathe. The room was silent except for my breathing, ragged and wild, like an animal. Richard lay there on the floor, unconscious. Or maybe worse. I didn't know. And I didn't care. But I wasn't going to let Lily wake up and see what he'd become. So, I took a towel from the hallway closet and wiped the blood from the floor with shaking hands. Every drag of the cloth felt like washing away years of pain. When I was done, I checked his pulse. He was alive. Barely. That was fine. He needed to suffer, just not in front of Lily. I dragged him out of the house with every ounce of strength left in my aging body. The driveway was dark, and the old tarp in the garage became my lifeline. I wrapped him in it, rolled him toward the car, and shoved him into the trunk. Then I drove. Nowhere at first. I just drove. Tears blurred the headlights. I couldn't hear the radio, just the echo of Lily's voice. He said you wouldn't believe me. But I did believe her. And now, everything had changed. Carla met me at the cabin an hour outside town. She didn't ask questions. She just opened the door. We dragged Richard in and tied him to a chair. When he woke, his lip curled in rage. "You're crazy," he spat. "You're going to prison." "Maybe," I said calmly. "But not before you tell me everything." He stayed silent. So I played the footage. His face changed. "I'll kill you," he whispered. "You already did," I whispered back. "Every time you touched her. Every time you made her cry." Carla stood beside me, holding the phone. We called the police. 2 hours later, flashing red and blue lights painted the walls of the cabin. Richard screamed. Cursed. Called me names that should have cut me like knives. But they didn't. The officers found the footage. They watched in stunned silence. One of them, a younger cop with tired eyes, turned to me and said, "You did what you had to do, ma'am." They cuffed Richard and took him away. He didn't look back at me. Cowards never do. The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken promises. Richard sat behind the defense table in a cheap suit, pretending to be the victim. But Lily's journal. The footage. My testimony. It crushed him. The jury took less than 2 hours. Guilty. 25 years to life. He didn't speak when the sentence was read. He just stared at me like he wanted me dead. I stared back. He already was. The house felt different after he was gone. Quiet. Safe. Lily started smiling again. She'd giggle at cartoons and ask for pancakes shaped like hearts. Every night, she'd say, "Good night, Grandma." "Thank you." And every night, I'd whisper back, "You're safe now. Forever." One day, months later, I got a letter in the mail. From prison. It was from Richard. I held it for hours before I opened it. When I did, I found only one line inside. "You'll never be free of me." I burned the letter. And then I danced. In the kitchen. With Lily. To old music. Because I already was free. I started going to therapy. Not for me, but for Lily. So she'd know it was okay to talk. We met other survivors. Shared our pain. Some nights, I'd wake up screaming. Flashbacks of the years I ignored signs. The silence I kept. But every morning, I'd wake up to Lily's drawings taped to my wall, flowers, hearts, and stick figures of us holding hands. We were healing. Together. I legally adopted Lily when my daughter said she couldn't come back. The trauma had shattered her too. I didn't blame her. We all survive in different ways. But I promised Lily, "You'll never feel abandoned again." And I meant it. One day, I shared our story online. Not for sympathy. But for every woman, every child, every grandmother who'd ever been silenced. The post went viral. Support poured in. Survivors reached out. Lily watched me with wide eyes as I read every message. She asked, "Are we famous?" "No," I smiled. We're brave. At her school's assembly, Lily stood in front of 100 kids and told them, "If someone hurts you, it's not your fault." She looked at me in the crowd. "And if someone listens, hold on to them." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Now, I sit in my garden. I'm 72 years old. Lily's laughter dances through the open windows. The wind smells like lavender and lemon. People think grandmas are weak, that we're past our time. But I fought a war for my granddaughter. I faced the darkest corners of love and came out with scars and strength. So here's what I say to you. You are not alone. You are not weak. And you are never too old to fight for what's right. This was my story. But maybe, it's yours too. Thanks for listening. Like this video and subscribe for more inspirational stories.